Friends, at this time we are going to begin services. I would ask everyone to start making their way to their seats. As you do so, I'll ask if you have a cell phone or any other noise-making device, if you would take a moment now to please turn it off or place it in the silent mode. Again, friends, we are going to begin services at this time. And just as a reminder, again, if you do have a cell phone or any other noise-making device, if you'd please take a moment at this time to turn it off or place it in the silent mode as you make your way to your seats. Officiating services today for Rita Jane Golub will be Rabbi Adam Shalom from Kol Hadesh Humanistic Congregation.
I'd like to begin this memorial observance for Rita Golub with a short prose passage entitled Courage by Rabbi Sherwin Wine. Death needs courage. It is so overwhelmingly final that it fills our days with dread and anxious fear. When it arrives at the end of a long and happy life, it is never welcome, yet not deeply resented. But when it comes too soon, disrupting hopes and dreams, it adds anger to our fear. We cry out at the injustice of destiny and wait for answers that never seem to come. Courage is the power to confront a world that is not always fair. It is the refusal to beg for what will never be given. It is the willingness to accept what cannot be changed. Courage is loving life even in the face of death. It is sharing our strength with others even when we feel weak. It is embracing our family and friends even when we fear to lose them. It is opening ourselves to love even for the last time. Courage is self-esteem. It prefers determination to whining. It prefers doing to waiting. It affirms that exits, like entrances, have their own dignity. Rita Golub's family is living in a new world today. It's a world without Rita. Even if she has faded a bit in the past few years and wasn't the vibrant, active personality she had been, and you can see on this picture exactly what that was like. You could still visit her and remember those days, those experiences, those jokes, and those one-liners. Rita was known for her Rita-isms. Her family will be sharing many more of them. I just want to share one now because it definitely applies to this moment. Your reputation precedes you. Rita's reputation in this audience definitely precedes her. Those who knew her during her life, during her real life, knew that she was a loving, supportive, funny, generous, smart, active, and caring person to her family and to those around her. Her children, Paula and Sheila and Lee, the people her children brought into the family by marrying them, David and Michael and Sandy, her grandchildren, Samantha and Alex and Laura and Scott and Taylor and Nicole, they all knew Rita so well, from everyday experiences showing up with a big Starbucks cup in her hand, to special moments, visiting her house and having her visit them, in the Chicago area and around the world on Rita Palooza family vacations, complete with commemorative t-shirts. Her great-grandchildren may be too young for vivid memories of her, but she was certainly thrilled to be able to meet them. Her children, Paula, Sheila, and Lee, will be speaking about their mother a bit later, and I will share some words from her grandchildren in my remarks. My task today is to provide the framework of her life, while her family will fill in the color from their memories and experiences. One of Rita's passions beyond her family was duplicate bridge, which she started playing after Lee was born. She became a life master and was known in the Chicago Bridge community, and later in life played many days a week. Unfortunately, she proved unable to teach her grandchildren how to play bridge. Now, bridge is a very complex game. It takes memory and concentration and flexibility and a good partnership and being able to do your best with the hand that you are dealt. There's no dumping cards like in poker or drawing from the deck like in blackjack. If we think about Rita's life through the lens of playing bridge, maybe we'll remember each phase of her life in its own way. And do not worry if you do not know how to play bridge. You still won't know how to play bridge when I'm done, but you'll be able to follow where we're going nonetheless. A round of bridge begins simply. Take your hand of 13 cards, count your points, and see where you start. Where did Rita start? Her parents, Harry and Betty Lev, both came from Eastern Europe, though they met in the US. She grew up in Logan Square in a very Jewish neighborhood. Shel Silverstein was one of her neighbors. Her father was a good person, if somewhat directive, in telling you what to do, but he was also very generous in taking care of everyone that he cared about. There was her older sister, Marcy, and then Rita in 1932, and then baby sister Vicki 12 years later. Here's how Vicki remembers her big sister, Reetz, that she sent to me. Rita was nearly 12 when I appeared on the family scene. She became my second mother. Steady, no-nonsense support with reward for good behavior and no for the opposite. I was also the 2-year-old culprit who drew on walls with lipstick and destroyed her precious dollhouse. Thanks to Sister Reetz, and Marcy too, I learned a myriad of piano routines, from chopsticks to Three Little Sisters to Clair de Lune and Stardust, plus Rita's ukulele, which after I'd mercilessly scratched using a hair clip to strum Ain't She Sweet, she destroyed by cracking over my 7-year-old head. Later, she regularly pushed my drawing skills to the limit for her many special art projects. Until I reached age 10, when Reetz married Gene, I also rifled through her pin-neat closet and cashmere sweater drawers for dress-up clothes. As adults, Reetz became one of my closest friends and confidants. We regularly shared insights, laughs, marveled, and supported each other's independent survival through our parents' family dysfunction. I miss Reetz dearly and know she'll always be cherished by all those whose lives she touched. Reetz would sometimes take Vicki along to high school sorority events, almost like a baby doll, to carry along with her. And the art projects that Vicki mentioned became a lifetime of Rita collecting art and seeking out beauty in her life. Now, the Lev family was Jewish, and Yiddish was her parents' Mamaloshen, their mother tongue, though Betty spoke English without an accent. In later life, Rita herself would make sure that her girls received some Jewish education and celebrated their confirmations, and Lee would have a bar mitzvah. That was maybe more Gene than Rita, but she went along. Rita did travel to Israel multiple times, and she would attend high holiday services with her family, either at a humanistic or a Reform congregation. She was equal opportunity when it came to family time. There was the one time that their conservative congregation, Beth Hillel, held a talent show. Lee wanted to participate, and she said, let him play what he wants. And so he chose Jesus Christ Superstar. Rita would also host Rosh Hashanah dinners and Hanukkah parties with hundreds of latkes. Good thing she had 2 daughters to work as sous chefs for her. Rita certainly started with enough points in her hand to get started, to open. And given how hard her father Harry worked to be successful, her opening bid had to be 1 spade, like a hard-working spade, a shovel. Harry was a self-made man who designed and manufactured uniform caps for the U.S. Army during World War II. The Mid-City Uniform Cap Company, which he ran with his brother. He designed, his brother ran the factory. Eventually, Marcy married Bernie, who took over running the business. But even though Rita grew up in a family with means, they had a large house with staff, even a boat for a time, she never really liked spending money. Years later, when Gene had a great financial deal put together on a bigger house in Winnetka to move to when they were living in Wilmette, she resisted. And finally, she asked him directly, are you buying a house or making a deal? For her, it needed to be a home, not just a building. Ironically, about a year later, they wound up in Winnetka anyways because they bought a different house nearby. Rita was not above putting her own spade to work either. After she graduated Senn High School, she went to the University of Illinois, which helped her learn a bit more how to be on her own. As she put it, to be GDI, goddamned independent. She once sent her dirty clothes home in a trunk to be done, and it was sent back to her still dirty, with a note telling her to learn to do her own laundry. While she didn't have a lifetime career since she married Gene and raised her family soon after graduation, she certainly kept herself busy in this next stage of her life. Now, the next bid, after opening, is where you try to find a good fit for your partner, to see if you can really play the game. And sometimes you have to be assertive and bold in that next step. Given how active and vibrant a personality Rita was, this had to be 2 clubs, even though she could have been part of way more than 2 clubs with all of her activities and interests. Gene and Rita met on a blind date going to watch stock car racing at Soldier Field, and they were married in 1953. And even if they eventually separated, they remained on good terms. She even insisted on receiving a court order for the divorce instead of accepting a settlement. She imposed her will on the judge and said, "You decide this. It's your job." Her goal was always to protect the family, which also meant being open to new arrivals. In fact, in later years, Rita even welcomed Gene's new wife, Hanna, to family events when she became part of the wider circle. A very open club indeed. That openness only comes from someone who has deep inner strength and strong self-confidence. 2 of her granddaughters, when they wrote to me, mentioned her strong personality. Samantha said, "She was a strong, independent woman who was an amazing role model. She helped shape who I am today, and I am forever grateful." And Laura said, "She was such a strong, independent, matter-of-fact, no BS woman. Great sense of humor and a joy to be around, even as a grandkid. I always loved her presence. She raised a family and extended family of strong women, and we will forever be grateful and will never forget where it came from." Indeed, Rita was so strong that when she was on her own post-divorce, she adjusted very well. She dated, but she would often say, "I'm too good for him." Or once in a while, she would say something like, "I wish I could put Bob's head on Dan's body." Another club for Rita was her golf clubs. Rita was a good golfer, but a terrible skier, and she hated it. Even as her memory faded, the vibrancy of her hate for skiing survived. And then there was a time she was playing golf with Lee, who got frustrated at a particular shot and threw his club. He got to walk back to the clubhouse while she took the golf cart. Rita was generally a positive person. Paula remembers being told not to spend time on negative energy. And Rita was very realistic and practical. She was talkative with her sarcastic wit. She could give it, but she could also take it back with a laugh. Maybe that's why she was such a good and valued friend. Rita loved to travel, both with her family, as we'll hear, and by herself all over the world. And it's appropriate because in bridge, the names of the 4 hands are north, south, east, and west. Rita also, for all that hoofing around, loved foot massages. She would trade them with Lee while watching MASH, and once she made her 9-year-old granddaughter watch a long video of her trip to Rio during Carnival while making her massage Rita's feet. And then Rita fell asleep. Turns out Rita could fall asleep anywhere, at a play or a movie, at Ravinia. She even once fell asleep on top of a speaker for her son-in-law David's band. But when Rita was not asleep, she was active in so many ways. She enjoyed art and theater. She loved to work on jigsaw puzzles, again, the visual component. And she volunteered for many causes. Northwestern Memorial Hospital Surgical Waiting Room, the North Shore Friends of Why Me, which we'll hear more about later, and WBBM's Consumer Advocacy Call for Action Hotline, where she helped people solve consumer problems and complaints by calling the vendors directly to get them to do what needed to be done. And she was very good at it, even though I think she went by the assumed name Mrs. Winthrop as her disguise. As Rita's family wrote in the memorial notice, Rita had a philanthropic heart. With that generosity and open heart, of course, you're trying to find in bridge the suit of best fit. And the suit of best fit for Rita was never going to be diamonds. She clipped too many coupons, she shopped too often at Costco, she didn't even want to pay for cable to watch the White Sox on TV, so diamonds was not her suit. And it wasn't clubs, it wasn't even spades. Rita was all about hearts. So the next level up is 3 hearts for her 3 children. As a parent to her children, Rita's love was unquestionable, even if you sometimes had to see it through the sarcasm to feel it. She was thrilled to wind up with 3 children who loved her. Her secret, she said, was that she was consistent in rewards and consequences, and at heart, she was a deeply good person. Paula and Sheila were first born in the city, and then Lee arrived after they moved to Skokie. That open heart extended to people her children brought into her life, though sometimes with some subtle direction. When Lee was in a high school band, for example, he often had his friends over, and they had a cookie and candy drawer available, and also soda pop in the fridge. But she thought that maybe she could get him to drink a little bit fewer of them if she bought terrible soda flavors and stocked the fridge with that instead. In the end, they settled on Tab with no sugar. And of course, the ever-present salad bowl filled with peanut M&Ms. Now, when her children found people to love and start their own families, they became part of the clan too. Sandy said she was welcomed with open arms across cultural barriers. Rita loved her because Lee loved her and gave her 100% acceptance. And as for David and Michael, they both agreed that there was a son-in-law number 1 and a son-in-law number 2. And it wasn't because of the order of marrying Paula or Sheila. Rita once called David at 7 a.m., saying it was an emergency. She could not get her makeup drawer open. Now, for her, that was an emergency because she was always put together with full jewelry and makeup, even in the nursing home. In the last third of her life, Rita hit her pinnacle, a raise to 4 hearts, as she became a grandmother and great-grandmother. It sounds like she was born to be Grandma Rita, the best possible potential of all the cards she was dealt. Just when you think you can't love any more than you do, your babies have babies, and your heart grows another size to love them even more. And then they find people to love and have their own children, and yours grows yet again. Here are some of the memories that Rita's grandchildren shared with me. Samantha wrote, "My favorite memory of Grandma Rita is when she came to visit me while I was studying abroad in Sydney, Australia. I was 21 years old, and she had flown across the globe to participate in a 3-week trip with a travel group. Australia was the one continent left on her travel bucket list, and she said this was the perfect reason to go. We got to spend time together eating, shopping, seeing the sights, and just being together in 2 different Australian cities during her trip. She got to know my friends and really got to see my life there. One day we went to my favorite smoothie place and we walked to the beach with them. For over an hour we sat on a park bench facing the ocean, drinking our smoothies and talking about life. I can't remember exactly what we even talked about, but we both knew this was such a special moment for the 2 of us to sit there and just be together." This is what Taylor and Nicole wrote me. "Grandma Rita was such a colorful and accepting person. She taught our dad to be loving of everyone and become the most charismatic and outgoing person we know. We love how Grandma Rita taught our dad to look at life in such a joyful and positive light, which he was able to pass on to his family." Scott said, "Grandma Rita was always there for us, for the big and little things, from hosting Rosh Hashanah dinners to attending all of my plays at school when I did theater to being there for graduations. I am also so grateful for all the trips she took us on and for all the opportunities to become closer as a family and explore the world together. She was always smiling, had a great sense of humor, and loved us with all her heart." Alex wrote, "Grandma Rita was a huge presence in my life and was always there, whether it was a big event or just a random visit. We shared lots of memories, golfing, traveling, going out to a show or out to a restaurant. Playing golf together was always such a special treat for me. We got to spend quality time together and, of course, share a nice meal afterwards. Her golf swing was terrible, but she never took it too seriously, and she made me feel better about my own game. She was a great person to talk to and always give a good dose of sarcasm. She would always ask me how my kids, her great-grandkids, could be so cute when they had me for a father." And Laura wrote, "We'd all play as cousins at her house. We'd go out in the backyard and cross what we thought was a big river, but was really a trickling stream. And our imaginations ran wild as we swung on branches of the big weeping willows in her backyard. She'd never come empty-handed to our house when we were kids. Typically, she'd always bring frozen yogurt, some yummy flavor for us, and a small coffee flavor for her. She always supported each of her grandchildren and was a behind-the-scenes but very present-force grandma in all of our lives. And don't even get me started on Rita-paloozas. Those were always the best trips of my life, and I am forever grateful that she did that because it's a big reason us cousins are so close and we are all really comfortable with our aunts and uncles. We'd be such goofballs and laugh and have the best time. Speaking for her many fellow grandchildren who wrote other versions of the same, Laura ended her note with, "I miss her already." Rita was happy to be surpassed by her grandchildren. When she failed to fool one of them, she admitted, "You're too smart for me." But she did decide to catch up a bit when she saw them using computers, and she became very proficient with her AOL email. A four hearts contract is pretty good as bridge games go, and even better as families go. Of course, a bridge game is not just the bidding to four hearts. How you play your cards matters just as much. And Rita played her four hearts very well because she loved and was very loved. Even so, sometimes the game goes your way, and sometimes it does not. Sometimes you're stuck with that cursed 5-0 split of the trump suit in your opponent's hands. In real life, you have everything set up to go your way, maybe, and then your memory starts to go. It's a real problem for bridge players when remembering what was bid and who bid it and what was played from where is very important. This started happening to Rita 4 years ago. It began to show up in her bridge games. But even then, she kept some pieces that were authentically Rita. Here's Laura again. Even at the end, in these last few years, there was always a twinkle of Grandma Rita, even as she declined. I felt it in her facial expressions, her wittiness and quick commentary. I could really feel her love, and that she was there with me, even though I knew she wasn't fully there. In her nursing home, Rita never complained, and she always had plenty of jokes and compliments and, above all, respect for the staff. There, too, she played the cards she was dealt as best she could. She was strong, as independent as she could be, and she was grateful and appreciative for what was being done for her. Sometimes the best thing you can do with your bridge hand is to play the card you received in the best contract you can find and let the scores fall where they may. But there is no doubt that Rita's suit was hearts. She had enough points from her roots and her own character for a full game, and that she was the winner of love, of family, of positive impact on the world. 1 spade, 2 clubs, 3 hearts, 4 hearts. I'd now like to invite her children, first Paula and then Sheila and Lee, to come forward and share their memories.
Wow. I'm going to try really hard to get through this. But that wasn't so easy. Okay. Well, first, thank you all for coming together today to honor my mom.
2 words, that's all you got. Take a breath.
Okay. I'll start by sharing a letter she wrote in 2003. It says, "To all my children and grandchildren, and anyone who might be concerned, it is my desire to be cremated upon my death and to have some appropriate service following." Well, here we are. "If at all possible, please say some pleasant things about me, which I would write myself, except I can't really think of too many at the moment. I know I could rely upon all of you to fulfill this request. With much love, your mother." Okay, so here we are, doing just that. That was my mom. There are plenty of wonderful things to say about her. She was a powerful presence, that's for sure. Outspoken, honest, and very direct. She never held back, told it like it was, or how she saw it. We could always count on her for the unfiltered truth. And for sarcasm too, which with her big smile she could deliver with just the right amount of heart and humor. She was warm in her ways and so thoughtful too. When I was 11 or 12, I decided that since we never celebrated Christmas, I would create a new tradition and buy little stocking stuffers for Sheila and Lee. I don't even know if you guys remember that. I used my own allowance money. On Christmas morning, I was excited to give my siblings their presents, and to my surprise, also found gifts for me, thanks to my mom. She was my champion. From a very early age, she encouraged me to try new things and to believe in myself. I always felt her love as I was growing and changing and finding my way. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, she was with me every step of the way, from surgery and chemo and reconstruction and recovery, all the way to fundraising for Why Me. I vividly remember the first ask letter she wrote, which started with the phrase, "We will no longer whisper about breast cancer." Whisper was in all caps and followed by many exclamation points. My mom didn't whisper through any part of her life. And she made sure I didn't either. She taught me to speak my mind and speak up for myself, and I'm the independent woman I am today because of her. Positivity was a way of life for her. As the rabbi said, she would repeatedly tell me not to waste my time on negative energy, which, as you all know, is a lesson I definitely took to heart. My mom was a very wise woman with a certain kind of pragmatic intelligence. Although she went through life without ever having a paying job, her wisdom took her and her children far. The first time she was the Girl Scout cookie sales leader for my Girl Scout troop, she came up with the brilliant idea of pre-selling the cookies, something that had never been done before. And of course, our troop sold the most cookies that year because we got cookie commitments from people long before any other troop even hit the streets. Rest assured, her plan was adopted by all the troops the next year, and it's still that way today. When Dave and I became parents, my mom's wisdom and guidance was to not tell us what to do, and instead, give us the space and the encouragement to figure it out for ourselves. My mom's parenting philosophy was comforting. She told us not to worry too much because it all boils down to luck anyway. And now, more than ever, I appreciate how hard it is to let go, both as a parent and as a daughter. Okay, a little more. Oh, God.
You got it.
I do. I think. I will miss my mom dearly. I will miss her presence, her sense of humor, her positivity, and her enthusiasm for everyone in our family. She showed up for all of us. I feel so grateful to have a lifetime of amazing memories with my mom, and so blessed that the woman who championed me my whole life allowed me to be her champion at the end. I love you, Mom. Good luck.
I brought my second up here too in case I can't get through it. Hello, everybody. And mine's even kind of funny, so I shouldn't be crying so much. Okay. The thing for me that stands out the most about my mother is her sense of humor and general positive outlook on life. She had a quick wit, some might call it rather sarcastic and sometimes quite cynical, but she was usually right on point and usually got a laugh. And if she didn't, too bad for them for having no sense of humor. She had irregular quips that most of her family and friends are all too familiar with, and she often came up with some doozies on the spot. We call them Rita-isms, which the rabbi had spoken of. They can be helpful words of wisdom, obvious and or silly responses, or just the plain truth. So here are some. So if we said, "It hurts when I do this," my mom would say, "Don't do that." We would say, "I'm hungry." My mom would say, "Look in the mirror and get all fed up." And she would say, "It's not raining rain, you know, it's raining spit."
Never got that one.
People say I look and sound just like you. And my mom would say, stuck is stuck. Nobody's perfect except me and you, and I'm not so sure about you. And of course, the son-in-law number 1 and number 2. Everyone knows who's who. So I think it started as a simple numerical description because David was first, but it evolved into a running pseudo-competition between David and Michael, but was always embraced with humor and goodwill. And Michael was very happy being second on the list and not getting the emergency calls.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you.
And after going down the list of the children's names, whether it's Paula, Sheila, Lee, or Samantha, Alex, whoever, she goes, "What's your name, honey?" "Don't eat that, you'll spoil your dinner." And instead of saying the F word, she would say, "Can you rate fingers, lips, or both?" And all this one was, pick a finger. There's a fine line between credibility and bullshit, and you just crossed it. I wrote down your reputation precedes you, but it's already been said. Don't let your halo come down and choke you. Birthdays are better than the alternative. And if she had some food in her teeth, she would say, "Oh, it's just a snack for later." And she would call bridge, or bridgy doo-doo, her job. And when I asked, "How'd you play today?" "I played like a turd." "Did you win?" "And we came in sloppy second." And after all those years of her playing bridge, she never taught us. Not sure if it was because none of us wanted to learn or she didn't want to teach us. But wouldn't you know it, I now play bridge. So now I really understand. There you go. So I really understand why she called it her job, because it's really hard work. If you had a fever over 101 degrees, she would say, "Sal." And she would say, "Be nice to your brother. He will move your furniture someday." Well, that never happened. And then she would say, "Be nice to your children and grandchildren, because they will be pushing your wheelchair." And yes, Mother, you were correct on that one. And we were all more than happy to do that. You must have been nice to us. So I find myself often repeating all of her Rita-isms, but always give her credit by starting with, "As my mother always says." So I'm sure I will continue to think about them and repeat them. And I always challenge myself to come up with some of my own, which I hope I do occasionally. But I don't think I will have ever topped hers, but I will keep trying. So either thank you, Mom, or thanks a lot, Mom, for passing down your sense of humor and sarcasm. Like my mother always says, stuck is stuck. I love you and miss you. Thank you.
I can't see. Well, hello, everybody. That's 2 words. I'm Lee, Rita's son. The rabbi. Spoke of some of what the family calls Rita-isms, as well as my sister Sheila. Well, I wanted to share a couple of them that were meant only for me. First one was if I ever did something that made her upset, she would tell me she's going to send me to the planet Pincus number 9. I never really asked her where that was because I got the drift. Another one, which was said on almost a daily basis, was when I would ask her what's for dinner, her response would be mother. And I would immediately shout back, "There's not a pot big enough in the world to hold you. It's what's really for dinner." And then she'd tell me to do the same thing. Go look in a mirror and get all fed up. She had that wit, which was just so awesome. I also like to share a story with you that most of you know. When my mom and I were having dinner at Green Acres one summer night, back when I was in 8th grade, I think it was, we made a bet. I bet her, I don't know how we were talking about this, but I bet her I would not get drunk through all of my high school years. She told me I was freaking nuts. I told her I don't think I like the taste of beer and I don't need to drink. Well, for 4 years in high school, I never drank. I had parties at 8 Winfield Drive almost every year when my parents were out of town. Most of those parties resembled the party that Joel threw in Risky Business. But I never participated in the drinking that went on inside or outside the house. The bet we made was for $1. And that was before the movie Trading Places came out, so we did it first. However, I got 1,000-to-1 odds on the bet, meaning that if I won, she owes me $1,000, and if I lose, I owe my mother $1. I did win the bet. And at my high school graduation, my mother gave me an empty beer bottle with 10 $100 bills in it, and a poem that she wrote. I'm going to read to you now, in a second. Dearly, if I really ever thunk that you wouldn't get drunk, or ever thought that you wouldn't get caught, having even a few beers in all of these years to get even a little high, or you would really stay dry, I surely would have given more consideration to your will and determination and perhaps made a better bet. But on the other hand, as yet, you probably would never think it's worth your while to drink or have any real use for the devil kickapoo joy juice, which from this mother's point of view is where it's at anywho. Now it does seem I've lost, and now it has to cost. So here's my end of the bargain. You deserve it. You really did win. Happy teetotaling with love, Mom. Now, she never really thought that I should have won the bet. So at my 40th birthday party, I wrote a poem that told her that I really did win the bet. And I can hardly blame her, because after high school, I made up for those 4 years of drinking in spades, and that she did know was true. So the poem I wrote back to her was, "Dear Mom, if I ever really thought that I would get caught, then I never would have made the bet. But better yet, it's time to quit thinking that the bet was not legit." So Mom, drinking tonight, with a toast to you. I love you.
There needed to be laughter today. We wanted to remember Rita as she was, as she would have wanted to be remembered. There are also tears today, and that is very appropriate, because a beautiful, vibrant, and loving presence in our lives is now gone. We live in between those two, in between sadness and joy, in between laughter and tears. And somewhere in between, we find something else that's important to moving forward from today, and that is peace. I'd like to ask, if you're comfortable standing, to please stand for a moment and to take out the folder that was given to you when you arrived. It has Rita's picture on one side. On the reverse, it has an adaptation of the traditional Kaddish to a more humanistic key. It's a praise of peace, peace in the world and peace in our hearts. I'll read the text first in the Aramaic/Hebrew, and then we'll say the English all together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shlomo ba'alma. Nivar Shlomo chirutana v'namlich malchute b'chayechona v'yomechona v'chay dechol Beit Yisrael v'agala v'izman kariv v'imru shalom. Yehei Shlomo Rava mevorach le'olam u'le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal Shlomo ba'alma brich hu. Le'ele min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nehemata de'amiran ba'alma v'imru shalom. Yehei Shlomo Rabba v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru shalom. Na'aseh shalom ba'olam aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru shalom. And in English together. Wonderful is peace in the world. Let us create a peaceful world and let us establish its kingdom now and in the future. May peace come upon us to bless our lives. May we always continue to honor peace in the world, even though no praise can equal the importance of its reality. May peace and life prevail for us and for all Israel. Let us work to create peace here on earth for all people. And let us say, peace, shalom. Let us pause for a moment of silent tribute and loving memory for Rita Golub. In the Hebrew Bible and the book of Proverbs, we read, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of a good person is a blessing to us. To conclude our service, we have a poem by Rabbi Jack Reimer entitled, We Remember Her. I ask you to respond to each line of the poem with the words, We remember her. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, together, we remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. In the opening of the buds and in the warmth of summer, we remember her. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember her. So long as we live, Rita too shall live, for she is now a part of us as together we remember her. To conclude this service, I can think of no greater gesture or action to take than to turn to someone who is close to you, whom you love, and to embrace them.
Friends, this does conclude the services here today. We thank everyone for attending. At this time, we are going to escort everyone from the chapel. And again, we thank you for joining us and joining the family today.